Hello, everyone. Greetings. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you guys are. Thank you for joining the webinar, Deep Dive Troubleshooting Operational and Security Issues in Your AWS Account using CloudTrail. My name is Sivakant, and I'm Product Manager for CloudTrail. Today, I'll talk about CloudTrail, give you a quick overview, and then show some features in CloudTrail that you can use to troubleshoot operational and security issues, and how you can use CloudTrail on a regular basis. Before I go and talk more about CloudTrail, there about 66-70% of the seminar attendees have indicated that they haven't used CloudTrail before. So I'm going to go a little slowly and walk through some of the features in a way that it is much more useful to almost all of the attendees. And please feel free to ask questions. We have Q&A time. We also have Sing Yong, one of our lead developers, joining us today, and he'll be answering your questions during the seminar, and I will be available after the webinar as well for 15 minutes to answer your questions. So for today, as I said, I'm gonna present a quick overview for a few minutes and provide you information on what CloudTrail is, and then I'll show you how to turn on CloudTrail for your AWS account. And if you have multiple AWS accounts, I'll show you how to write a bucket policy that allows you to aggregate log files across all your accounts. I'll also show you a demo of a CLI script so that you can actually turn on CloudTrail for all regions in your account within a few seconds. And then I'll do a demonstration of how you can use the CloudTrail Lookup Events feature so that you can actually look up events that are related to creation, deletion, and modification of resources in your AWS account. You can also use the CLI and the SDKs. I'll do a demonstration of that as well. And finally, I'll show you how to actually receive email notifications of specific API activity so that you can take immediate action. You can specify, you can configure Clockwatch alarms for the API activity recorded by CloudTrail and receive email notifications when those particular API calls are made. With CloudTrail, you also have the ability to use a partner solution that is integrated with CloudTrail. 15 partners have integrated their solutions with CloudTrail. So if you're using one of those partner solutions, you can use that same solution that you're already familiar with, and I'll give you an overview of those solutions as well. And we'll mention what those solutions are. So for some of you who have heard about CloudTrail, you may have seen this slide. This is the single slide that can tell you like what exactly CloudTrail is. You're making API calls to various AWS services in different regions in the world, and CloudTrail is continuously recording those API calls and delivering those log files to your S3 bucket that you specify. And then you can actually go into CloudTrail console or use the CLI to go and look up events related to creation, deletion, and modification and say which particular user took which action at which time on which resource, so that you can troubleshoot operational or security issues that are in your AWS account. So before I go in there and talk about, do a demonstration, I want to talk about the use cases that are enabled by CloudTrail. CloudTrail enables a variety of use cases, one of them being compliance. It acts as a compliance aid. So you can actually use the log files recorded by CloudTrail and delivered to your S3 bucket as an aid to demonstrate compliance, whether it be internal policies or regulatory standards. So we have published a white paper that actually outlines which particular sections of which particular compliance rules, regimes that you can actually meet using the log files delivered by CloudTrail. And you can use CloudTrail to troubleshoot operational issues. As I was just mentioning, you can log into the console and look at what are the most recent changes that were done in your AWS account and quickly understand whether a particular change made is related to an issue that you're troubleshooting. And you can use the log files as an input into log management and analysis solutions that you're already using, such as Splunk, Sumo Logic, Alert Logic, and can use the same pane of glass that you're already familiar to and can leverage all the features and functionality provided by those by those partner solutions. So what's exactly is in a CloudTrail event? A CloudTrail event actually contains important metadata about a particular API call or a particular event that you actually made to an AWS service. Contains who made the API call. So it contains detailed information about the user identity of the caller. It could be an IAM user, it could be a role, it could be a federated user. So it contains the user identity type, which is IAM user, a role, or federated user, and then provides information on what the username is, whether it is John Doe or Alice or Bob. And it also tells you which particular user gave them those credentials. So for example, if federated user Bob is getting a set of credentials and Alice granted those credentials, you will be able to answer that Alice granted those credentials to Bob. And you'll have a event time, the time at which this particular service received that API call, and it is in UTC format so that it is unambiguously represented, and the API call name, which could be run instances, or it could be something in RDS like create database instance, any API call that you made to a particular service. And then you actually will be able to see the resources that were acted upon in the responses and the request that you made, the request parameters and the response elements I meant to say. And then you'll also be able to see the source IP address of the particular API call and can see, okay, this particular IP was used to make this API call. What I'm doing here is not going into more details, but actually providing you an event reference on the documentation. You'll receive a copy of this deck so that you can actually go in and read more about what exactly is in a particular in a CloudTrail event. So let me talk a little bit about CloudTrail availability. We launched the service close to a year and a half or 2 years ago with availability in 2 regions. Today, CloudTrail is available in all AWS regions, including US Gulf Cloud and China regions, which we launched very recently. So you have full coverage in all regions. 42 different AWS services are supported via CloudTrail. What this means is if you make an API call to one of these 42 different AWS services, those API calls are recorded and made available via CloudTrail. Those events will be in the log files that are delivered to your specific S3 bucket that you specified. And if you make an API call using the SDK, it is recorded. If you make an API call using the CLI, it is recorded. It's completely agnostic. And the event actually identifies the user agent that you actually use. So for example, if you use the CLI to create an EC2 instance, you would be able to answer that by looking at the user agent field that says AWS CLI. If you use the console, you'll be able to look at the user agent field, or you use the PHP SDK, and you'll be able to answer that information as well. Typically, CloudTrail delivers the log files containing these events to the S3 bucket that you specified in less than 10 minutes. And as I was talking before, you can aggregate log files from multiple accounts into a single S3 bucket. So if you have account 1, account 2, account 3, and you want to use a particular single bucket where all the log files should be aggregated so that you can conveniently access them in the future, you can do so. So for example, this is the documentation link that you can use to read up on how you can actually aggregate log files across accounts and regions. And I'll talk a couple important steps in this process to actually to get to the point where you can actually aggregate log files. So when you set up, you have to set up an S3 bucket policy in such a way that you authorize CloudTrail to deliver log files related to these accounts 1, 2, and 3 to a particular S3 bucket. So you open up you can use the S3 console, or you can use the S3 CLI, whatever is convenient for you. You go in there and you copy the particular bucket policy that is in CloudTrail documentation page and add a resource section. If you have, as I'm showing here, if you have 3 accounts, you add 3 lines that correspond to those 3 accounts to the bucket policy. And CloudTrail looks at this particular this particular path, and then, oh, okay, I've been authorized to deliver log files for account number 1 into this particular S3 bucket. and so for account number 2. And when you turn on CloudTrail for account number 2, you simply specify this particular bucket name, my bucket name. And you do the same thing for account number 3. When you turn on CloudTrail for account number 3, you specify the bucket name, my bucket name, and which has the policy that is set up appropriately. So if you want to, I want to show a quick demo of how simple it is, how simple and easy it is to get started. Let me come out of the presentation mode and open up my browser here and show you guys how to get started on CloudTrail. So here I am, I'm in Northern Virginia region, and I click Get Started Now. And CloudTrail asks me whether I want to create a new bucket or I want to use an existing bucket. This is a scenario where I'm setting it up for my one bucket, for my one single account. I go ahead and say, I want you to create a new bucket for me. And you can, the CloudTrail console does this for you. I'm going to call it my Unum, sorry, I cannot use the caps here, Unum CT bucket. And then I go ahead and say click turn on. You're already subscribed, so my apologies. I will go into Yes West. Okay. Give me 1 second here. I probably am using the wrong account. Okay. So I go ahead and say I'll use a new bucket that I want CloudTrail to create for me. Okay. All right. I gave a particular bucket information, and that's the configuration that I'm going to actually see. So this is the S3 bucket where my log files will be collected, and I did not choose any advanced options. So I'll be receiving log files in the Unum CD bucket 123 for this particular account going forward. This is what you do when you have one single account and you do not have and you do not want to set up across regions or across accounts. Let me switch back into presentation mode one more time to show you guys how you can actually create trails and turn on trails across all regions in your single AWS account. For example, this is a script that I put together to actually turn on CloudTrail in all regions using AWS CLI. And I've written a script, and you'll receive this as well. And let me switch back into the CLI mode here so that I can show you how exactly the CLI works. But before I do that, I'm just going to walk you through here. I'm specifying a bucket name that you can replace with your bucket, and I'm specifying a profile because I use multiple accounts. And then I actually go ahead and say, here's the region for global events, and I iterate on a particular set of regions that are returned by this particular command, and I go ahead and create a trail, and then I actually start logging on that trail is essentially what this script is doing. So if you go in here, and I'll just go ahead and run the trail status command to see whether there are any trails that exist in this particular region. So, and then I'm seeing that a trail not found exception, which means that there are no trails created in those particular regions. And now I know that there are no trails that are created. I'll go ahead and say, turn on CloudTrail in all regions .shell.sh, which is the shell script. And what it is doing right now is it's creating with a particular bucket name that I've already set up with the appropriate policy and specified as a part of this script. So now I'm turning CloudTrail on in use central 1. So apparently there is one where I have already created a trail, so there is a client error, but that's just you can actually go in and delete that particular trail and recreate that. And if you now that I've created all these trails and turned on all of those trails, I'll go ahead and do a get status command to see whether these trails are all turned on and what exactly the status on them is. So now I can see that logging has been set up, and here is the particular information, the latest delivery time and start logging time, and the latest delivery time shows when a particular log file was delivered by CloudTrail to that particular S3 to an S3 bucket in that region. So for example, you can see here in trail status in AP Southeast 1, I can see that the latest delivery time is in this particular timestamp. So this is how you do. You go ahead and create trails in all regions with a simple script. And let me switch back into presentation mode here. I've just gone through the demo of this, and I want to switch topics and talk a little bit about CloudTrail Lookup Events. So the Lookup Events feature allows you to look up the API activity recorded by CloudTrail for your AWS account. So for example, you can look up events that are related to creation, deletion, and modification of AWS resources. Obviously, the read activity is not recorded and shown in the lookup events because of how much information that you could actually be looking at, and you can currently look up events for the last 7 days, and you can specify one of the 6 different filters that are available to you. You can filter by a username, you can filter by a resource name, you can filter by a resource type, event name, or event ID. A resource name would be an EC2 instance that you're interested in, could be I-234ABC. A resource type would be something related to something like an EC2 instance or an RDS database or a Redshift cluster. And a username would be your IAM username, or it could be root, or it could be a federated user, or something, or anything that is in the particular payload. So this is how a lookup events interface looks like in the console. As you guys can see, you can read this out in plain English. On so-and-so day, Sivakant created a database instance, and there were 6 different, a security group and 6 different resource types were impacted, and those are SG hyphen blah 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 and 9 more. And I can go in and click in and zoom into that particular event and see the full event in that particular in the console itself. So let me show you how you actually can do that. And I'll switch back again to my browser to show you that information, to show you how that is exactly done here. I'll go into a different account. I'm going to the CloudTrail console here in US West 2 region. As you can see, there are multiple events for this particular account and different resource types and resource names that are associated with this particular account. So as you can see, all these you can see events from 726 onwards. They're all arranged in the most recent, the events are arranged in the chronological order, with the most recent events starting first. So you can see that at 11:02 Pacific Standard Time, Sivakant logged in, and there were a few other logins for me, and then there were create network interface API calls. So for example, if let's say you're troubleshooting why a particular IP address is not found, or no longer, you cannot actually connect to a particular network interface. And you can see that there was I would first start with a particular event name, because you know that you're looking at IP addresses, and you go ahead and say release IP address, and then you will actually see that there is autofill in here. You can actually do this and say, oh, okay, so at particular time Sivakant released a IP address. Let me see if that is the IP address that I am interested in. Okay, this was the access key that was used. This is the event source, and this is the source IP. And let me look at the entire event. Okay, And this is how an entire event looks like. And here is the IAM user that did this, whether it was MFA authenticated, it was not MFA authenticated. Here is the ARN for the user, and so forth. And the event type, the event name is AWS API call. The event name is releasing the IP address. And now I can follow up with the user or create a ticket for following up and understand more. If I wanted to then go and say, I want to see what else Sivakant did at this particular time on this day, I'll go ahead and initially I'll start with saying, I just want to filter on Sivakant and see the time range. Okay, here's the activity that that is related to the user ID or username Sivakant, and I can actually see that there are a bunch of console logins, and there are release addresses and detached network interface. And if I'm interested in probing further, I would actually go in and look at what this event is, and those events are related or not. So this is how the console interface looks like with on how you actually can look up events. You can actually similarly you can actually specify a resource type and say instance, and you would actually pick up an EC2 instance and see what activity was performed on a type resource type EC2 instance. So an EC2 instance, I-*X was actually stopped and started on 726 by user root. So similarly, you can do, we've gone through username, event name, resource type, and resource name. I can actually go in and type in the particular resource name that I'm looking for. And you can look at the filtered events for that particular resource that you're interested in. And you can also do event ID based lookups. As you can see here, if you want to do programmatic lookups, you can get events in the S3 bucket and then go ahead and call lookup events with the event ID. So this particular event ID, when you make a lookup call, will retrieve this event that is start instances in EOS West 2 with this particular instance information, and you can retrieve all the information that is in that particular event. So let me switch to the CLI and show you how you can do the same thing in the CLI as well. So for example, remember the file name. So for example, I can just do a plain lookup events, and I want the output in JSON, and I go ahead and say, I want to see what those events look like. So here are the events, and here's a particular event ID information, and here's the JSON on that, and I can programmatically take actions on those particular events. And you can see that the resource type is AWS EC2 VPC and the resource name. So they are all arranged by specific ARNs, and the resource name or IDs that correspond to them. And I can do similar things on, as you can see here, I'm now specifying that I want to use an attribute of username, and an attribute value is root. So I go ahead and type in this command to get results that are scoped to username root, and basically username root, and for the events that happened in the last 7 days for that particular user. You can do something very similar, which is I'm going to scope it by resource type and filter it out by resource type and say that I'm interested in EC2 instance, and you'll get similar JSON formatted results for your AWS account. Again, these are the commands that I just ran there, and you can use these, and you can come up, if you're using SDKs, you can come up with similar programming. You can program using your SDKs as well. So now that we have seen what is a reactive way, or you actually have the ability to go in and look at a particular set of events, you may be wondering, how do I actually get a notification when specific API activity occurs? So what we've done is you can actually receive CloudWatch. You can actually receive email notifications from CloudWatch when specific API activity occurs. So you need to configure your CloudTrail log files to be delivered to CloudWatch so that CloudWatch can alarm you when specific API activity or events occur. So why do you want to do this? You want to do this because you want to take immediate action, right? And to be more proactive and reach out to the user or take actions to remediate some of if you find it that it is not a desired posture for your AWS account. So you can what do you need to do? You simply need to configure CloudTrail events to be delivered to CloudWatch logs. CloudWatch logs is a feature of CloudWatch, and then you can configure CloudWatch alarms for specific events. And I'll go through a demo of this quickly, but before I do that, you may be wondering, what events should I actually monitor? Should I monitor all events? Should I monitor some? The answer is it depends on your use cases, on your scenarios, and what is important to you. But what we have done is we've put together a set of events, a set of API calls that are very important to customers based on our discussions with a lot of customers. So, for example, most customers express the need to monitor security and network-related events because they have a very high blast radius. So you want to monitor creation, deletion, and modification of security groups and VPCs in your AWS account. You want to monitor failed login events. You want to monitor API calls that resulted in authorization failures, meaning if John Doe is not allowed to terminate EC2 instances and John Doe is trying to terminate an EC2 instance, you want to receive a notification when that happens. You want to monitor for failed, I talked about that. You want to monitor for changes in IAM policies. Changes in IAM policies can mean that someone is going to get a higher level of privileges potentially, and you want to review whether those changes are really needed or not. Or you want to monitor events that are related to specific resources or resource types. For example, you want to monitor if someone launches 4x or 8x large EC2 instances, you want to know that those instances were launched so that you can immediately take action and see whether the use is really legitimate for your business need, or you can make decisions based on that. So how do you get started with this? There are a lot of different events that we just talked about, and configuring CloudWatch alarms. How can it be? Is it simple or is it complex? So what we've done is to get you started with the most commonly requested alarms. We've put together a CloudFormation template. For those of you who are not familiar with CloudFormation, CloudFormation allows you to declaratively express what code or infrastructure that you want to provision within AWS. So you can actually use a CloudFormation template to say, I want to create these 10 different predefined alarms. And what we've done is for these specific events that we just talked about, we've put together a template that has 10 predefined alarms. And the CloudFormation template is available via the CloudTrail documentation page, and you can do this. You can set this up in as few as less than 5 minutes. We'll go through that really quickly in a demo here. And then once you're set up, you will receive email notifications when those events occur in your AWS account. So the entire complexity around setting up an alarm, setting up what is the syntax for monitoring a particular event is all abstracted into a CloudFormation template, and you go through a simple click in a couple of minutes, and then you'll be good to go. So I'll quickly demo CloudTrail, how you set up or configure CloudTrail integration with CloudWatch, and then I'll talk more about the rest of the presentation in a second. Give me 1 second here while I switch over. So I'm in Oregon here, and I go to my configure. This is where I see the API activity history or the landing page if you have turned on CloudTrail in that region. And then you have configuration here. You have the S3 bucket that you have set up, and you can see that the last log file was delivered to S3 bucket that you specified at so-and-so time. With CloudWatch logs, I haven't done anything here, so I'm going to go configure CloudWatch logs here. And I'm going to be creating a new or existing log group. CloudTrail gives you a default name. I'm just adding 1234 just in case if I've created that in the past. I don't want to have a name conflict. Go ahead and say continue. And what CloudTrail, what you'll go through is a screen that tells you that you are granting CloudTrail permission to put events into your CloudWatch logs log group. And you simply say allow, and CloudTrail has now ability to go and input logs into your CloudWatch logs log group that you have specified here, which is CloudTrail/default log group 12345. Now, this is the IAM role that CloudTrail uses to deliver log files to this particular log group, and the role permissions are scoped exactly to the to putting events into your log group. So now we have configured CloudTrail log files to be delivered to CloudWatch logs. So now what do? I need to go ahead and create CloudWatch alarms so that I can actually receive email notifications for security and network related API activity. And this is the CloudFormation template that I was referring to. And I can go ahead and say, open this in a new tab. And I go into CloudFormation here, as you can see, and I'm in US West 2. And I'm going to name this CloudWatch Alarms for CloudTrail Network and Security, just to avoid name conflict. And it has automatically picked up the template, which is stored publicly available in S3. And then I go ahead and say click next. And I'm going to give my email address and click next. I'm going to ignore any tags. And I'm going to review this real quick and say create. And as you can see here, there is a stack name that I've given, and the create is complete. And you can see events. Okay. Now I can go into CloudWatch. And I can see that these are the different alarms. These are the different CloudTrail related alarms that we have already set up. So for example, I would like to receive a notification whenever the VPC event count is more than 3 for 15 minutes. I've made some changes here. You can actually see, you can make changes directly from here. You can modify it and say, okay, I want it for just 5 minutes, and save the changes there. And I can refresh that. Did I change it? I thought I changed it. Okay. And then there are different events here. So as you can see, CloudTrail sign-in failures. This is a alarm that we have set up to actually go ahead and receive notifications when there are console sign-in failures. And what it is saying here is if the failure count is more than 3 in a 5-minute time period, go ahead and send me a notification. And similarly, you can see if someone is actually stopping or starting CloudTrail, you can actually get a notification for that. And the CloudFormation template, if you're interested in looking at the exact syntax of the JSON, you can actually go down, you can download that file and look into how exactly the syntax is, and you can build your own CloudFormation templates or your own events your own alarms that you want to monitor, events, monitor specific API activity. As you can see, there is CloudTrail authorization failures that I want to receive. If there is an authorization failure in a 5-minute interval, and if it's more than one, I want to receive an email notification. And let me quickly switch and show you how this exactly looks like. We have a detailed monitoring CloudWatch log files, CloudTrail log files with Amazon CloudWatch logs. Here's a section that talks about how you can send log files, and here's a section on using AWS CloudFormation template. It just shows you what I just demoed to you, and then you'll receive a email notification that you have subscribed to the topic, and when a particular event actually happens and that you're monitoring for, this is the email that you'll actually see. And I have a copy of that in the presentation as well. To go a little bit deeper and look at a particular example of console sign-in failures, here is how the particular syntax looks like. You have an event name and an error message of failed authentication. The event name is console login, and the error message is failed authentication. You define an alarm, and you can do these individually, each and every one, or you can use the CloudFormation template to do that. So let me come back into presentation mode here. And we have seen how you configure CloudTrail log files to be delivered to Clockwatch, and then set up the particular set up and turn on and create a CloudFormation and use a CloudFormation template to create Clockwatch alarms. So in this email notification, I'm reading this email notification, and it says CloudTrail IAM policy changes was triggered, and the data point is there were 7 changes on a so-and-so date, and the alarm just changed from insufficient, alarm just changed from insufficient data to alarm state. So I received an email, and now I can actually go back into Lookup Events interface that I just showed you in the console and see whether that particular event is what I'm after, and when was those IAM policy changes happen. So for example, in that case, I would go here and look for event name, IAM, it's put group policy or put role policy or user policy. So whichever IAM policy that was being modified, I'll go ahead and say put user policy. In this case, I don't have those events here, so I don't see anything. But if you receive a notification for a specific alarm, you know which events are probably based on the alarm definition. You know which events could have triggered that, and you put that particular event name in there, and you can see the events related to that. Switching back into presentation mode here. So a lot of our customers use log management solutions that for other needs. So we have partners who have integrated their solutions with CloudTrail, giving you the ability to use the same solution that you're already familiar with. So for example, if you're using Alert Logic or Log Entries or Splunk, I'm just picking names randomly, or Datadog, you can use those partner solutions without having to do anything. You have to configure them to ingest the log files, and the partners provide documentation on how to set up the partner solution to retrieve log files from your S3 bucket, and then they provide various alerting mechanisms, various views, dashboards that you can actually use in that solution itself. So this is something that you may want to look into if you're already using one of these solutions. And there are consulting partner solutions as well that have integrated their solutions with CloudTrail. So that's all I have today. Thank you very much. And with that, I will open up to question and answers. One second. One of the questions is, are there scripts in a GitHub repo? No, they're not in a GitHub repo, but we can look into adding that. But you're going to get a copy of this deck, so you'll get the script as well. Another question is why there is a limitation to view only last 7 days. If you have specific feedback on this, on how many days that you can actually that you would need the ability to look up events, let us know, and you can provide us that feedback via CloudTrail forums, and we will add that to our backlog and iterate on it. And we already have some customer feedback on that, so we're actively looking into it. But the more the feedback, the better for us. Another question: can you filter by tags? Um, you cannot filter by tags right now. You can filter by time range, username, event name, resource type, resource name, and event ID. So we're looking into that. That is on our roadmap back, and as a part of our product backlog. Um, that is that is something that has come up in the past as well. We will look into it. Another question: can you use CloudTrail for application logging? Um, so CloudTrail is if you're thinking about application logging, you should look into CloudWatch logs. CloudWatch logs provides you the ability to send um, logs from your server. That means within the EC2 instance, within a guest within a guest, whether it be on premise or whether it be in the AWS cloud. You simply install a logger agent provided by CloudWatch logs, and that sends log files over to CloudWatch logs. And you can configure it in such a way that you're using the same log group, and now you have the ability to do your monitoring, alerting on top of all the logs combined. One more question: will we be able to see more than API calls in the CloudTrail Web Console, for example, AWS service events such as KMS grant, revoke, or access? I do not remember this on top of my head. I will look into this. KMS API calls are recorded and available in S3 bucket. If we do not have that availability in the lookup console, I'll go ahead and look into that, and we will add that to our backlog and iterate on it. Another question: why is lookup query rate limited to 1 per second? So CloudTrail delivers log files approximately 5 minutes, and when we looked at it, if you look at it, even if you provided a much lower TPS, you're not getting additional or new information. So if there is specific need to provide a higher TPS, please post us on AWS forums and explain to and provide us the use cases or scenarios so that we can actually look into increasing the TPS. It would be nice if we could configure to write the logs to service-specific S3 prefixes instead of one lump file of everything. This is good feedback. It goes both ways. There's an advantage and there is a disadvantage. If we start filtering / sorting those events, it is possible that some solutions can pick only events related to that particular service. And when you're doing a security analysis, you want to have all the events together so that you can look at the entire feature. And I can understand why someone actually would want to just look at one particular set of service events. We'll look into that, but also it can be a breaking change as well. So we're going to be cautious, and we'll look into that. But putting a additional adding something to the S3 prefix can be a breaking change. So we will look into that and get back and add that if possible. Can entries in the logs be modified? I do not understand the question. I have an interpretation, but I don't know whether that is correct or not. So I'll take a best shot at it. Can entries into logs be modified? Meaning, can if someone has access to the S3 bucket, they can actually go delete the log files. They can actually go make changes to the log files. So what we recommend customers to do is set up the S3 bucket policy in such a way that it is scoped down to only users that really need to have access to those log files. And as an additional layer of security, what you can do is you can enable MFA delete on it. And when you enable MFA delete on the S3 bucket, you require two layers of two-factor authentication, and you're going to you've increased the bar for making any changes to those log files. And you can actually share that MFA key with one of your auditors so that you have separation of responsibilities as well within your organization, so that folks, personnel in the IT department have to actually talk to an auditor to get access to making any changes there. So hopefully that is helpful on the can entries in the logs be modified. I would like to set up CloudTrail for all my sub accounts. Do the operations you outlined here allow for that? No, the CloudFormation template is for configuring CloudTrail Cloudwatch alarms for monitoring CloudTrail API activity recorded by and delivered by CloudTrail, and not for setting up CloudTrail for all the sub accounts. You have to script it, and we will look into adding more documentation to that and on how to doing that using the AWS CLI. When will S3 be supported? I cannot comment on specific dates, but we're working on it, and we will add support for S3. Leveraging CloudTrail and CloudWatch, can events be pulled into or sent to a SIEM? Absolutely. A SIEM, Splunk is one solution that you can use, or it depends on what your solution is and whether they are actually integrated with CloudTrail. Integration with CloudTrail is fairly simple and straightforward for a partner. So we have multiple partners that have integrated their solutions. I've shown you a screenshot of the partners that have integrated, and you can also view the entire partner list on aws.amazon.com/cloudtrail/partners. Sorry about that. I was on mute for a few seconds here. I apologize. I'll repeat myself. Another question on CloudTrail and S3 integration, which is about when will S3 API activity be available in CloudTrail. I cannot comment on specific timelines, but we're working on it, and we'll be launching it as soon as we can. And we have 10 more minutes. There's opportunity for more questions. There is time for more questions. So if you guys want to fire more questions, I'm happy to take them. Um, Another question, are there any API calls that are not logged by CloudTrail? There are very few services that are not yet integrated with CloudTrail. S3 is one of them, and we are working with S3 team to make that available to you. But otherwise, you can log on to the CloudTrail documentation page and see them and see all the list of services that are actually integrated with CloudTrail and specific API calls. So there is an entire list of that. Uh, would Another question, would there be an advanced scenario when one detects, say, an API key is being used to create a bunch of M3 large extensions and take an automated action to disable that key? So I do not know whether you can do that today, but using CloudWatch or CloudTrail, specifically CloudWatch, I know we cannot do that using CloudTrail. What you can do is you can write code when you receive a particular notification from CloudWatch. You can take action. That's exactly what the automated action that you can write. For now, you have to do it, and CloudTrail/CloudWatch doesn't provide you automated actions like from here are a list of potential actions that you can take. So that's good feedback, and we'll look into that. Is it Another question on lookup/event history, is it limited to 7 days? Is there a way to get events older than 7 days? So right now it is limited to 7 days. If you think it's valuable for you for more than 7 days, please let me know what kind of retention periods would make it more valuable. Would it be in the order of months, years? That kind of feedback is super helpful for us to actually go and iterate on that. Another question: when logs are in S3, is there a way of loading them into the console to provide the same GUI features, look and feel? So the logs in S3 bucket are yours, and there is no once the log files are delivered to S3, CloudTrail delivers that with full access control to you. So CloudTrail doesn't have any access or cannot touch those events, those log files that are delivered to S3. I do not understand the question where you're saying provide the same GUI features, look and feel. The answer is loading them into the console is not possible from your S3 bucket. All right, we have 5 more minutes. What about CloudWatch triggering Lambda to have Lambda execute Node.js code to disable that key? That's exactly what I was hinting at. I didn't take any particular service names or particular code names, but you can do that. You can write a Lambda function to actually go ahead and disable that API key. That's an automation that you can take, definitely. So you guys, I want to talk about CloudTrail forums, and if you have specific feedback or specific asks on what we should work on for the rest of the year, please let us know what you would like us to deliver, and we will add them to our backlog. And your feedback entirely drives our prioritization. So please go ahead and voice your opinion on the CloudTrail forum so that we can actually get more precise with our prioritization. We have 3 more minutes, or actually 4 minutes. So I'm going to wait for a minute more to see if we have more questions. Otherwise, thank you everyone. Thank you for joining, and I hope it was useful. And if you can provide more information to us via CloudTrail forums, that would be very helpful. Um, One question: if and it's a big if, S3 is unavailable, are any logs dropped or lost? The answer is no. The logs will be delivered in a delayed fashion. So if if the service is unavailable, and for whatever reason, logs will be delivered in a delayed fashion once the service is restored and fully operational. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to